Hello, everyone, and welcome to my very first attempt at doing something I've been wanting to do for a while and never had enough of a good excuse to do until now. And basically, my project here is I am going to be having just long form, free flowing conversations with all kinds of different people. Specifically, I want to talk to trans people and learn more about their experiences. And I I'm not trying to talk to famous trans people. I would, if you're a famous trans person out there, hit me up. Um, but I do want to talk to like literally any trans person who has something they want to say. It's because right now I feel like people don't realize that like we're just humans. We're just like regular people. We're members of their communities. We're their neighbors. We're their friends. We're their classmates, their teachers. And Uh, they gotta know. And also, every single trans person's experience is so different. And I think just the more we have recorded and cataloged, I think that's better for everyone. So it's kind of an anthropological exercise as well for me. I'm just trying to get a snapshot of like, what is it like to be a trans person in 2025? Who are we? And with me for the pilot, the experiment, my guinea pig is Bree. Bree, hello. Thank you so much for being
Hi.
here. Bree
Thank you.
is a trans woman, an artist, a very silly mom, and a creator on Instagram and TikTok. Tell me whatever it is that's important about you that you want to guide before I'm asking specific questions here, like for
Well,
thinking of
I
this
think
anthropological record. Who are you?
that's exactly it. You touched on it so perfectly when you said that you think it's important that we create more and that there's more recorded leftovers of us and that we leave more of ourselves behind and that we get out there and show the world that we're more than just trans women. And I think that's why I like to highlight the silliness because there's something so disarming about humor and about being goofy and about letting everyone around you know that you're not taking yourself so seriously and that you're just experiencing the whimsy of life. And I think that's a really powerful thing to go out into the world with and say, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to have fun.
Yeah.
And again, by highlighting the silliness and my humor and just trying to have fun, I'm not always going to focus on trans issues. I really spend a lot of my time focusing on parenting issues and being a mom and just being a part of this world. It's
I'm
not
confused.
always,
Are
yeah.
you saying you're a full and complex human being?
Believe it or not, I'm sorry,
Okay, that's wild to
right?
me.
I
Um,
mean,
I was not
yeah.
equipped to talk to full and complex human beings. I really thought I was going to be talking to two-dimensional, sort of trans archetypes.
Unfortunately, like a majority of your followers, I was not birthed out of someone's skull. I am not Athenian, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, actually, according to the majority of my followers claimed to have been born fresh from the skull of Zeus.
Right. It's
So,
impressive.
uh, you're in the minority, not being
No,
Athena, but
I actually, yeah, no, I emerged from a conch shell or whatever.
oh, Aphrodite style.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So Bree, can you I just want to get basic overview biography, like where are you from, who are you, and then whatever like feels important to you. If you're gonna summarize yourself in a little blurb, and
Yeah.
and then after that, anything that wasn't already included, I'm gonna ask the same question specifically about your like trans journey.
I don't want to make anything that I'm about to say about myself or like I don't want to use any descriptors that are going to insult anybody after what I say, but I've always considered myself just peak average. And
Okay.
I know how oxymoronic that kind of sounds, but I'm just so average. Like that's really just the best way to describe me. Like
What does that mean to you though? You're from Chicago. I know that
Just
much.
from Chicago. Yeah, from Chicago, moved up to Colorado.
Born and raised in Chicago?
Yeah, technically I was born in Minnesota, but
Okay.
we moved to Chicago at an early enough age that I basically say, I'm from Chicago.
Okay. And we, parents, siblings.
Yeah, both of my parents are still together. Both are very accepting and loving of
Amazing.
me. That journey did take a while, you know. But they've grown, we've grown. My relationship with my sister and my two brothers has grown immensely. But just, yeah,
Where are you in the sibling order?
I was the first.
Oh, you're the oldest.
Yes. So I was the guinea pig for a lot of things.
Okay.
But just, growing up in the Midwest in suburbia, just being, middle
And
class,
and
just
how old are you? When were you growing up?
so I grew up in the 90s and in the early noughts. I graduated in '06.
From high school?
And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Um, Amazing. Okay, so you're growing up in the
Mhm.
suburbs of Chicago in the Midwest in the
Mhm.
90s, early noughts. You have two brothers and a sister, loving parents. And so far, I'm going to be honest with you, Bree, this sounds like a specific and unique life that I wouldn't describe as peak average.
I can understand why somebody would say that, especially a trans person. Um, but the way I see it, it's how do I want to say this? It's a way of being cognizant of privilege, of being grateful for the things that I have. And to say that my life was average isn't to say that I have not done anything great. It's not to say that I have not had experiences that are not worth treasuring. What I'm saying is that I come from an intersectionality of life where I can amorphize myself or homogenize myself with many, many different types of groups. I
Hmm.
always saw myself as being comfortable to go communicate with this person or go hang out with these people, go talk to this kind of group. And having that ability to communicate and having that ability to recognize common experiences that I've had has made it more easy for me to approach and to be that kind of ambassador or advocate for us, that kind of thing.
Okay, so by saying average,
Mhm.
you're saying that like you came from this kind of there was essentially like no notable axis that someone could point to you and say, like, this is how you deviate from the normative understanding of what like an American kid of that time would have been.
Yeah,
Like you were this
I
white
think that is
suburban
a good
kid.
way of saying it because I did go to church every Sunday. I was in the Boy Scouts. I went to public school. Like
Okay, yeah. So
I did.
you were the archetype
Yeah,
of a 90s Midwest at the time, boy.
yeah.
Um,
Napoleon Dynamite, just stereotypical, just
yeah. What were you
yeah.
like? Like what were you like as a kid? Do you remember? Like,
Um, very shy, but very eager not to be.
hmm,
Um, and I think that that actually is a good reflection of like how I didn't recognize a lot of my identity. Because we all have those like looking back on it moments. And one of the times that I would always shine was when I was dancing.
oh,
And unfortunately, dancing being very culturally effeminate and being very much catered to young girls, that might be seen as my one non-average life
yeah.
experience was being a dancing artistic boy.
Like
And
tell me what kind of dancing? Are you talking like at a party or are you like actually taking dance classes?
yes,
Okay.
just dance, like the art. And like I'm very expressive when it's like my voice and my gestures. Like I'm very animated. And it was the same way when I was dancing. Like music would come on and I just wouldn't hold back. And then I did take dance classes and I did go to competitions and I
Wow.
won some of those
Oh,
competitions.
okay. So you're a successful competitive dancer. How old are you at this point?
This was from the ages of 8 to 14.
Okay.
Yeah. But it see, that's the problem. It was really easy to be a good boy dancer because there were so few of us.
Okay.
Um, it was very easy to be notable. But as soon as I started, getting closer to high school, um, deviating was a no-no.
So
I
the
wasn't allowed to do that,
dancing fell by the wayside.
unfortunately.
I wasn't allowed to do that by, is that like an active thing you were told? Is that a thing you told yourself? Like there's the sense you got?
No, it was a thing I told myself. It was very much, I'm dealing with far too much stigmatization and pressure from outside social groups, and word is getting around now. This is not how I want to be perceived. This is not what I want people to remember about me.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
and by word was getting around, you mean like people are like saying
Yeah, I
like,
had
"Oh,
people actually coming to me saying, "Oh, hey, Bree, do you wear tutus?" And obviously, they weren't calling me Bree back then, but they were like, "Do you wear tutus and you dance around like this?" And
yeah, I mean
or
this is the 90s, early aughts, so this is this is the peak OG era of gay as omnigeneric insult.
thank you.
Um
Yes, it's what the kids would call cringe these days.
yeah, yeah, cringe or now what a lot of people call lame, which, a lot of disability
I'm
rights.
guilty of that, and I try not to be.
And
So,
I am too. Like that's the word that I used to replace gay in my own vocabulary that I'm now trying to excise from it.
thank
But yeah, at the time it was everywhere. I
yeah,
mean,
we all
what
had to do the same thing with the R word.
yeah. Were you in a like was this like a faggot culture? Like were people throwing that word around?
Yeah, I don't appreciate that word.
No.
That was I had such an awful, awful relationship with that word. I mean, the one that sticks out in my head was like I was just like hanging out with these guys. We had just gone to a club, and I was hanging out with my friends or I was hanging out with one friend and his buddies that I'd never met. And I don't know what I was giving off or what I was doing that night, but one of his buddies just started going off on the F word. And then, and he dropped it twice. And after he dropped it the second time, he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, sorry." And I was like,
Oh,
"What?
interesting.
Like, what am I doing?" Like, I don't know. That was the one that I'm never going to be able to forget. But oh, yeah, it was just that common.
Yeah. I
That's all right. I'm not in any rush to reclaim that word,
okay.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I like reclaiming that word personally just
Okay.
because not because I have care about the word in particular, but because any word like that that's reclaimed is one less arrow in the quiver of queer phobes who hate us and want to hurt us. Um,
Yeah. I think, well, I would never use that. But at the same time, I'm not going to let it hurt me like that,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's amazing how like weird random little memories like that stick with you,
Oh, yeah.
especially if it's not the norm for you. Like I was always like kind of a weird kid, but I was lucky enough to grow up in a small school with like, I grew up with a lot of smart kids. I was at a
Mm,
private school, and
mm.
even though I was obviously a very weird nerd, like that was respected enough in my unique high school subculture.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but one summer I did a homestay in France, uh,
Oh,
which was amazing.
yeah.
And I had just had this so I had a very similar trajectory to you. I'm not a dancer, but I'm a singer. I'm a performer.
Okay. No,
I
that's
love musicals.
right on the other side there with the
Yeah,
performing arts.
yeah.
Yes.
Um, And like my whole elementary school through middle school, I was doing a lot of performance stuff. I was a big Odyssey of the Mind kid, if you know what that is.
I don't.
That's fine. And when I got into high school, I also had that same like, okay, time to shut this down. This is too effeminate, too
Mhm.
gay. Um, and a lot of that was self-imposed, but in the way of like a smart, perceptive kid preemptively self-imposing to avoid,
Yeah. We
hostile imposition.
and
Um,
we can probably talk for hours about how that one word just made the entire process so much harder and longer because I'm sure you were right there with me where it was like this wasn't a sexual thing. Like I didn't want to be with men. I wanted to be a girl. Like
and I
that
didn't
wasn't
even,
gay. Like there
yeah,
it wasn't the right word. So having that constantly thrown at me just made it all the more
you're
hard to
you're
understand.
you're a lesbian.
Yeah, I'm bi.
Yeah, oh, bi. I'm also bi, and so for me, part of it was like, well, I want to get to this later, but before I lose my tangent here, because I brought up France, and I know people listening might be like, why did she bring up France? Um, so uh, I had one positive experience my junior year of high school,
One?
where no, I had a lot of positive experiences.
Okay.
One specific one
Okay.
where I did karaoke, and I did a duet of A Whole New World with a friend.
Oh,
And it was really fun. And I got a lot of like lovely, nice comments from people, friends who've been like, wow, I didn't know you could sing. And that was so fun to watch you. And then after that, I was like, okay, maybe I can stretch a little bit here. And then I was doing this homestay in France in the summer. And I was with my host brother and his friends who were a very different crowd of teens. And I started singing um, some Disney song I loved. Like I think it was like Won't Say I'm in Love or something.
Hercules, love it.
Yeah. And one of his friends was like, Es-tu un pédant? Which is French for pedo in French is unfortunately the equivalent slur of faggot. It doesn't mean like pedophile. It just means it's faggot. Um, and so overhearing that, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm never trying that again. Uh,
Yeah.
And it's
No,
like one random person whose name I probably never learned,
no.
who I literally interacted with him for 15 minutes and he doesn't know I exist. And like that was burned into my head.
Yeah. So I had a God, you and I are this is eerie. So I went to Spain and
Oh, fun.
I did a work stay over there in Spain and had a very similar experience because they found out I could dance and they took me to flamenco lessons
I mean, fun.
and I got really, really into it and I was really good because I just, I'm a
You're a
dancer.
dancer.
And I'm proud of myself for forgetting the word. But they kept using the word for rabbit, and I can't remember what it was. But
I won't look it up, even though
yeah, they had.
every bit in my brain wants to.
But my host had to basically say after we had left, I was like, they kept using this word, and he was just like, oh yeah, that's rabbit, and it's like the word that they use for
Got
yeah.
it.
So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, that was fun. I wish I didn't have that translated, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's people ask why. I'm sure you get this in comments on your content and stuff. People are like, wow, I just don't get why trans people always have to be doing stuff. Why do we need pride? Why do we need queer people doing stuff? And it's because, like,
Mhm.
when you grow up at the time we did, when there are no counterbalancing messages out there, it's
No,
little shit like that, like, can
I,
form these weird mental blocks that fuck you over for years.
I grew up on South Park.
I did
Like,
too. Yeah.
like, I mean, I don't know, and I don't know if we're ready to have that conversation of how badly South Park affected our generation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in that show that I can like look back on and be like, yeah, that was funny, but holy, that set me back. I
Yeah, it's yeah, maybe another
Okay.
conversation. Okay, so you were a dancer when
Yeah.
you were younger.
Hmm.
That was your one way that you maybe were notably like not like other boys.
Yeah.
Um, and and you said like you're sitting there being like, that's not the right word. Like, did you have a sense internally of like, well, that's not the right word, but like I am something? Or were you just like, I'm just like every other boy? Like, why are you calling me that?
No. This is where my Catholic upbringing really reared its ugly head. And it wasn't I have a thing. It was I have a problem. I have
Mm.
a sin. I have a part of me that I can't let out. I can't foster. I can't um like I'm not allowed to touch it. Like
Yeah.
if you touch it, therein lies temptation.
Mm.
And if you give into temptation, like bad things will happen. Um and even going through my atheism journey from my late teens up until like pretty much a few years ago when I started playing with the idea again. Even throughout my atheism, my upbringing of that religious trauma was just always rearing its ugly head, where I was just like, no, this is a burden. This is your cross to bear. This is just a proclivity you have. This is just a kink.
What was
Figure
it?
out how to deal with it.
Are you able to remember in your mind, like, did you, is that just kind of it? It was like this amorphous blob that you knew should not be touched, or like, did you have a more specific label for it in your own head?
Um, I had a more specific label because I was not not leaving it alone. I was on websites and I think I watched the term evolve from it was like transvestism to transsexualism, back to transvestism to cross dreaming to
Cross
autogynephilia.
dreaming?
Yeah, cross
Oh,
dreaming.
that's a new one for me.
To
What websites were you
autogynephilia.
on? Like, just to get, you don't have to share, but just to get like part of the internet anthropology of
Well,
how
maybe you'll bleep this part because I don't want because I'm not ready to
you
throw
can,
shade at these websites. But TG Comics, Fiction Mania.
you don't
I
want
think,
to, it's not shade. I mean, this is just a record of how they
oh
were
no,
impacting you.
no, I'm saying because I think we are gonna have to have that talk.
I've
Um,
never heard of these sites.
oh wow, okay.
You were on these
Um,
in high school?
yeah, and for longer than I'd care to be.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah. Um, like I knew who Miss Mako was.
So these are user submitted content
Mhm.
or
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because yeah, I mean, this is even going further back. My first introduction to the whole concept of um recognizing the desire to be on the other side was from a book, and they called it breast and vagina envy. And that was the closest to what they had the ability to describe it as. And I think that was written in the early 80s.
Hmm.
Um,
And it's so interesting because like trans people had been obviously like trans people have existed forever, but like trans people had been existing in community and like medically transitioning by that point for by the 80s for half a century. And by the time you were growing up for, you know, nearly a whole century, um, depending on how far back you go. I mean, if you're looking at like The Circle Hermaphroditos and Jenny June's autobiographies, like that's the 1890s where trans people are finding each other. And a century later, it's still this like unlabelable, vocabulary-less thing that made it so hard to understand oneself.
I think a lot of it has to do with the over sexualization of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's something that I try to be, I try to be honest about in my transition journey and in my awakening is, I also had really skewed views about what women are and what transitioning is for and why anyone would want to be a woman. And I had to overcome all of that as well. And in doing so, I recognize that a lot of the people who are against us just really do have misconceptions. And often they are overly sexualized misconceptions. And
Yeah.
I think that's another reason that being open and honest and silly and not necessarily um, overly sexual, I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
it's hard because I don't want to say trans women don't be sexual because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's this
Right.
freedom and liberation that comes from recognizing that that's not why we're doing this. Um,
Yeah. Or not only why. And maybe not why for some people and more why for others. Like every single trans person can be different and have different motivations. And
exactly.
yeah, that was, do you remember like when loosely and where you were encountering like autogynephile as a term?
Um, I didn't find that word.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
an
You just
ex,
listed it in like the stuff you were.
yeah. So here's the thing: an auto. I had an ex-girlfriend who I decided one day to share my feelings with, and I was very forthright with her about like what I felt and like what I wanted. And she didn't handle it well.
Mm,
So she went on a rabbit hole and she went on a crusade to label it. And she came back with autogynephilia as her way of neutering the issue and
yeah.
saying, oh, it's just a thing. And it's okay that you have this thing as long as you don't let it control your life. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense. How old were you then?
19.
Oh, wow, really young when you first encountered that then. Yeah. Yeah, it's such a insidious idea. Um, I
I have a lot of feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to talk too much about it if you don't want, or we can. Like,
No,
what are
no,
your
no.
feelings? What's,
What I think it is I think it's a sanitized version and it's a way to make it palatable. Um, Because what we're doing when we're saying there's a difference between a trans woman and an autogynephile is we're differentiating a good way to express the behavior from a bad way to express the behavior. And in trying to separate autogynephile from a trans woman, it's a dangerous, dangerous game that we're playing because you could like there are people who will go to autogynephiles and say you guys are just repressed trans women, and then there are people who go to trans women and say you guys are just guys who are taking your autogynephilia too far. And so it creates this sanitized version or this okay way to express a desire to be feminine, but it's only expressible through sexual gratification. It's not acceptable to be social. It's not acceptable to want to be seen that way. It is a bedroom activity only. Don't talk about it,
yeah,
that kind of thing. It's a very religious way of just saying, sweep it under the rug, don't talk about it, don't deal with it.
yeah. Sex is such, sex plays so many weird roles in our culture, but definitely
Mhm.
one of them is like because sex is already so by nature in our kind of whatever, like Christian descended, repressed prudish culture, like sex itself is so inherently taboo that it has become an understandable way to like, oh, well, you want to do something else taboo. Like that is conceivable to me as Joe generic man, uh, as a form of role play, as a form of sexual taboo violating role play, because anything that becomes a violation of social norm, anything that is socially taboo, then it's immediately associated with the world of sex and justified and like, yeah, as you said, sanitized or like quarantined within that
Yeah,
space.
compartmentalized and treatable almost.
Yeah.
Like it becomes a pathology at that point rather than
Or literally a
a
paraphilia,
person.
as Ray Blanchard calls it.
I mean,
Yeah.
philia is in the name, so
Right.
yeah, yeah, you're
Um,
exactly onto it. And again, I feel like it's just the people who want to use that have such an uncomfortability themselves with sex and with being sexual. I think that really holds them back from truly understanding what we're all about because they don't even want to go there in the first place.
yeah.
Um,
And you see the way this happens. I mean, like, it's not obviously it's not just about trans things where this happens. Like, um, I'm polyamorous, and polyamory is treated the exact same way by so many people,
Agreed.
where it's like, oh, that rather than me think about why I am monogamous, my commitments to it, like where it comes from. People want to be able to say, well, my monogamy is completely natural, and the way I live and go through relationships is completely natural, and there's nothing to examine here. And polyamorous people are just swingers. They're
People
just
who don't have control.
hypersexual. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you're constantly in a harem or in an orgy, and like every other night it's a different partner. It's like,
Yeah,
but that's not what it's about. It's, opening your heart to multiple people and being there for multiple people and having very, very direct relationships with people. It's
yeah.
not, but you're
The
only going to get that misunderstanding from somebody who has that preconceived notion that it is about sex.
yeah, and and as a result, like sex is such an effective, yeah, quarantining device for people who
Mhm.
don't want to think about the implications that something might pose to them and like the way they live. And not even change it, but just like draw into question the fundamental naturalness of what they do. They don't like the idea that other people can be equally natural in a way that's different from them. Um, yeah. So, 19, you encounter this idea,
Yeah.
autogynephile. And before we started recording, you were telling me about, were you in college, by the way? Did you go to college?
I went to community college. I never
Okay.
finished a degree there, but then I finished my culinary degree years later.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Still in Chicago at this point?
No, I moved out to Colorado at that point.
Okay, great. Um, so now I just want to like, because we can keep deep diving on these tangents forever, but
Yeah.
I want to finish the story here. So
Mhm.
how did you get from 19 years old confessing these feelings to an ex who didn't take them well to now you are a mom, married, multiple kids? Um, yeah, like fill in that story for us.
I think the easiest thing to say is just the thought that I had when I finally made that decision. Um, because I spent those 15 years essentially convincing myself and trying to find people who could help convince me that I could just keep going. I could just do the man thing. I would be fine. I needed people to tell me that trans people were silly and weird and they didn't know what they were doing and that these pronouns were stupid. And
Do you mean on people online? Do you mean like professional, like therapist people?
um, no, it was mostly the media and the content that I was consuming. I I went through a long phase of listening to a lot of talk radio,
Mm.
not in a way of like, I want to support this, more of like a way of like, when Trump won the first time, it was so alarming to me and such a shock that I was like, I clearly don't understand a lot of my fellow Americans. I need to. So I started consuming a lot of that content. And I have a lot of conservative family members, and I would talk to them, and I kept those dialogues open for so long. And I would just listen to them just go off. And I don't know, I was listening to the things that they were telling each other and was listening to their sources. And I don't know, one day the right connection was made, and it was like, well, what would I do in that instance? Um, because I was always listening to them with the idea that I wanted to refute them and I wanted to know what they were saying so that I could come back at them.
Hmm.
And so I
And
had
to
all
clarify, are you married at
three.
this point?
Yeah, I'm married. Yeah. And
And you're,
I have my first kid, and I'm trying to think about like how I'm going to tell my kid that there are LGBTQ people in the world and that they deserve to be here. And that even though I'm not, I would if I could. And in that
interesting.
kind of recognition, I was like, did I seriously just tell like my child that like I'm not trans, but like I
Wait,
literally
that's an
did.
actual thing you said to them, or this is like a
This is
hypothetical?
going in on my head where I was like,
Yeah,
I
okay.
was like, I literally just did the thing. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like still cis, but um, and then I posited this kind of theoretical what if where you have this choice between you can go through the rest of your life and everyone you interact with will she, her, you, call you by the right name and see a woman for the rest of your life. You'll never be misgendered. You'll never see anything. Um, or you have the option of only seeing yourself as a woman. You know, you take off your clothes and you see breasts, a vagina. You know that you are a woman, but no one else is going to see a woman for the rest of your life. They're going to misgender you. They're going to call you the wrong name. They won't know, but you will. And in that moment, I knew that I would rather choose the latter and see myself as a woman, even if that's never going to happen. Sorry if I'm getting emotional.
It's okay.
Um, because that's what it's about. It's about me. It's about what I see.
Hmm.
Like I haven't had the operation yet. I haven't done any of that. I've only been on hormones for a little over 3 years. But I've never considered myself less of a woman.
Yeah.
And being misgendered, you calling me Bree, you calling me she, her, that doesn't change anything. But it's me. It's how I see me. That makes the biggest difference. And that's how I chose to go through life. I don't care what anybody else sees. Like I'm doing something that I didn't think 20 years ago was going to be possible. Like I specifically held off because I thought that, I'd only want to do this if I could be cis and if I could be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's no way to go through life. Like nothing's ever going to be perfect, ever. Like you have to do it. You have to go.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, I would make that choice, I was like, then you already did it. Because nobody sees a woman but you. So just just do it. Just go.
Yeah. And that you said that was in 2021.
Yeah.
Was there any particular, like, do you remember, was there a particular thing trigger that like led to that imagined conversation with your kids that allowed you to have that moment? Like, what was that in reaction to? Or was it just kind of a culmination?
I think it was just like I said, the right brain connection at the right time,
Yeah,
just
something happened.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as we were joking about before the recording, like for a lot of people, COVID, this time of uh lockdown and like everything, all the artificial trappings of like society kind of I I
Yeah,
had
it
I came out
melded
before
away.
this, but yeah, I think for a lot
Yeah,
of people it was really helpful to just have like, damn, I'm like forced to sit alone by myself here. All these things that I was able to focus on as the real important stuff has been revealed to be like this social game we play that can stop at any time. And
literally.
so
That
like
is
what
exactly what I was about to say. It could
yeah,
stop at any time. So what am I doing? Waiting.
yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting the way that you phrased that choice because I actually wasn't sure like, oh, I don't know which way she's going to go with this. Like, does she want to be she, her,
Mhm.
seen as a woman by everyone?
Mhm.
But so I think I misunderstood part of the thought experiment. Was part of the thought experiment that like nothing about you and your body would have changed? It's just
Yeah.
like the social acceptance.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously I would want both. Um,
But we do. But I think what that really did is it helped me catalyze the idea that my desire was an innately biologic desire. And maybe that's the wrong word to use. But it really came down to it's not about how I move through the world, it is about my body.
yeah.
And I've had similar realizations about like that in terms of like my motherhood and where my desire comes from, or a lot of my recognition of my trans identity and my feminine identity does stem from my desire to be maternal as
Mm.
opposed to paternal. And even in the instance of a society that is strictly women, I would still very much choose to be a mother. Again, not having any relation to the act of, um, copulation, just
Yeah, just
that's
dynamic.
this exactly. It's just this the societal role of a mother child rearing. That is what I have always seen myself as.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean it's not a true dichotomy that you pose
mm,
yourself, right?
mm,
Like, yeah, I assume you want both. Like
all
you
kinds
do
of
go
things.
through the world as a woman. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not something I can take off. Like I don't change my voice when I go out. I don't,
well,
put my hair up or back.
your voice is very, oh, you mean, okay, I see what you mean.
Mhm.
You don't defeminize your
Oh
voice.
no, no, no. This is me
Yeah,
24/7,
yeah.
24/7.
So
Yeah.
they're both important to you.
Mhm.
The social aspect of it, the relationship, the interpersonal relationship part of gender,
Right.
and
It's
like
it's an
your
Ouroboros for sure,
yeah,
but
I
it,
think it's important though. I'm just
mhm.
calling it out because like not because I think you misunderstand, but
Yeah.
because I think um I well my neurodivergence pursues clarity and
Yeah.
also
Oh,
like
yeah.
I think it's an important distinction. I think with the death of the term transsexual over the last couple decades, where that became this uh it became a word that was self-policed out of the queer community by a lot of queers, as
And you're aware that that word, a lot of people are trying to reclaim that
I'm a
word.
big part of I love reclaiming it
Okay.
because I think it identifies there's these two separate axes of an experience, and not everyone aligns with both. But like, I know for me, as someone who considers myself both transgender and transsexual, like without without the language to be able to describe both experiences and feel like they're both legitimate, it becomes a lot harder to like
Yeah.
understand what's going on. And
Yeah, I mean, it's a dicey situation. I mean, even currently as it stands, just because there's that pull in our community to pick a side almost of like, are you the transgender and the transsexual? And I've had great people on both sides tell me, where they get the definition or the term from. I'm not opposed to it at all.
yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy to have to say that you're one or the other,
Right.
because they identify two different experiences that
My understanding was that it was just another umbrella under another umbrella
that's
where
kind of how I tend to think about it. But I think, insofar as sex and gender are different axes of human experience, that's what I think they like these are just labels, right? Like it's not
Mhm.
like there are actual like transsexual or transgender or trans or gay or
Yeah,
literally any
unfortunately
human word. Like
there's
these are,
no there's no tag anywhere that you can
yeah,
like actually
exactly.
see,
These are like
unfortunately.
loose descriptors we use to
Mhm.
communicate something important about ourselves,
Right.
you know?
It very much helps us identify in groups and out groups and people that we can relate with and form rapport with and further relationship with based on an understanding of a shared term. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's very important. And I think that's why I don't necessarily always try to jump into discourse so much as I try to just understand
Yeah. To me, it's
all
not
sides of the discourse.
the discourse. I mean, the Twitterification, the social mediaification, the in-group, out-groupification. Like, I understand historically why transsexual ended up falling out of favor. For one, because it became this sexualized word in the mouths of cis people that I think had it feel distasteful. And then also you had your transmedicalist, true scum, Blair White types who were trying to use that distinction to illegitimate like trans people who didn't care as much about passing or about the medical side of things.
And it's
And
so interesting too, because I mean, you've mentioned Discord a few times. I feel like, I mean, there are so many different origins that trans women have, where it's like you can come from the technological side of like the Reddit, the Discord, the gamer culture that
yeah.
kind of has started to form its own, and then there's the queer community and the gay community. Um, and unfortunately, I don't feel like the two have done a very good job of meeting at all times, but
Well, it's
we'll
funny,
get
like
there.
I can feel such a yeah,
This is what I'm talking about, like finding that commonality with multiple groups. Cause
totally.
I could do the Discord and then I could do the gay queer community. Like
Yeah, and
finding
I
that bridge
a lot
is
of it's just
important.
like some people need to touch grass and then other people need to I say that lovingly as someone who's on
Yes.
Discord all the time. And then um yeah, I mean there's this like huge cultural divide that we should talk about another time that I think is fascinating between the like mostly male attracted community of trans women who often do grow up gay and like part of the gay community and have it's frustrating because it is like there is a community division within those labels Ray Blanchard was talking about,
Yeah.
um, that he was saying like real transsexuals versus the perverted autogynephile, right? And like, no, but there is just an interesting cultural division between trans women who come from the world of gay men and trans women who are mostly women attracted and like have lived their lives as
I
straight
think
men. And
it's, I think you touched on something, and then it makes me think that we almost need to adopt a more like an anti-racist position where where we are cognizant and we do recognize the differences between and we celebrate those and we see how we can use those differences together as opposed to just further dividing us.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Like
leaning
it
into
is
the interesting intersectionality stuff that comes up rather than using it to categorize and taxonomize.
right. I guess a good way of saying it is we shouldn't use like our origins as a way to unite us or divide us, but like the fact that we're here now,
Yeah,
meeting here is what brings us together.
100%. And of
Yeah.
all kinds. But I just started bringing this up because the way you were talking about this thought experiment you did that helped
Mhm.
you,
Yeah.
I have a similar thought experiment I use in my own head, but it's more of a desert island thing. Like
Okay.
if I find myself on a desert island, um, what will I care about? And that's what I use to separate like the social aspects of transition. Not to say they're not real, but to say like they are important to me in how I relate to others and in part of society.
Yeah, you're getting down to that base of the hierarchy of needs,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, am I going to care as much about, like, uh, I obviously don't do much to feminize my voice. And I've had people ask me about why. And I'm like, yes, it gets me misgendered and I don't like that part of it. But like, if I'm on this desert island and I'm not talking to anyone else, then my voice doesn't bother me. I like my voice. What
Yeah,
would bother me are these things about my body. Like I would still be pursuing bottom surgery on this
that's a very
desert
good
island.
point. That's a very good point. And I don't know. I'm like thinking, like, okay, would I do this on the desert island? And I'm like, yeah, probably. I'm weird. I talk to myself
And
a
that's
lot.
like
Like,
that's fine. Like
yeah.
and it's not a test that's meant to like prove what's
No, I
real
think
or
it's
not.
it.
It's
No, I think
purely
it's
for the
really good.
individual.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are things I do that I wouldn't do on a desert island because as someone who is also like transgender and has the social identity of woman, I do adopt parts of the performative social role of woman
Mhm.
because I that's the performance language I have to use to get other people to see me and interact with me in ways that I want them to. Like that's just how it works. Um, that's how it all works. Anyway, um, okay, we don't have too much time left, so I want to stop. I want to stop yapping my own stuff over here.
Why? I love
Um,
this.
oh, I mean, just because I want to make sure I get to all the stuff I have on my little sticky note to ask you about.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we can always talk again.
Yeah, no, I'm like, you're so smart. Where did you go to
Oh
school?
my God, thank you. I went to Harvard.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not.
Oh my
No.
gosh.
I
No
studied
wonder.
philosophy. I was very miserable and depressed, and I wasn't closeted. I just didn't really know what I was.
Yeah, same.
Um,
Yeah, I get
yeah.
it. Oh my gosh.
So, okay. I think we only have like maybe 15 minutes left safely, but
Oh, it's no problem. Yeah.
um,
I appreciate you being so attentive to the time.
no, yeah, it's you have children, and you're a silly mom, but you're still a
Mm-hmm.
mom.
I am.
Um, how old are your kids, by the way?
5 and 2.
5 and 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Are you raising them? This is a distraction question that just
Mhm.
popped into my head.
Yeah.
Are you like doing anything intentionally to raise them in any sort of like gender agnostic ways or
No. No. I wouldn't say we're being like there's no such thing as girl boy. Um my oldest goes to public school. She is very aware of the fact that
kindergarten?
her mom used to be her dad.
Hmm,
She knows that. She talks to me about that. She asks me questions. She remembers lots of stuff about, how I used to have a beard, and
hmm,
she remembers specific vacations we had based on my hairstyles. Like,
interesting.
it's really funny what she remembers. But both of them have just like latched on to me being mom. They're very, my oldest is aware of the fact that I have a penis. That's not something that we necessarily hide. Um, but we're I don't know, we're honest, she knows that her mom is trans. She
Yeah.
doesn't exactly know what that means yet, but she knows that her family is special.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, kids are like I guess kids are basically little desert islands in themselves where like they haven't
Yeah.
learned
And
all
then,
the all the rules of the game yet. And
yeah, I mean, we went to Pride yesterday and she came home and she was like, Mom, what's gay? And I
hmm,
was like, awesome. I love these questions. Well, baby, gay is a lot of things. And
yeah,
then, that's really all you have to say. And like, because one, they're rarely paying attention to what you're actually saying. What they're paying attention to is how you're saying it, the emotions that come up when you say it, and the things that they associate. So my girls understand that pride is rainbows and a lot of people dancing, um, and just a lot of very bright colors.
yeah,
That's all they see. And it's the same with being home. They know that their moms love them. They know that they are cared for,
yeah.
and that's all that they care about.
And just to head off,
Mhm.
I can't imagine this person would have made it this far in this video, but I have this imagined transphobic Instagram commenter in my head now.
Mhm.
Um, and I just want to pause in a note for you. If you're 21 and you're a transphobe from 4chan and you don't have children, it's not weird for a kid to know what genitals their parents have. Kids
Yeah,
ask that shit all the time. They're trying to understand themselves as embodied beings. And when you were a kid, you knew what genitals your parents had too.
everybody's
Uh,
seen their parents naked, yo.
the transness of it doesn't all of a sudden make it strange. Um, okay, so let's see if we can get through this journey.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I don't see her yet, so we're good.
great. Okay, John 9114.
Yeah,
That's in your
that's a very
Instagram
helpful
bio.
piece. Yeah, I gotta be saying something about that soon because what I thought was really interesting is I have the same bio everywhere except Instagram.
Hmm.
That's the only place that I have that verse. And my follower count has exploded on Instagram more than any other platform. And while that's purely anecdotal and in no means, causation, I do think it's interesting because it means that people see it and it's not necessarily a turn off. It's interesting. And you brought it up because you're like, that's a very interesting thing for a trans person to have in their biography because a lot of us, I would say, are non-religious.
Yeah, to me, the implication is that you're a devout Christian. If I see a Bible verse in someone's bio, I'm like, that's this person signaling that they're very Christian.
I made a vow that I was never going to let that kind of stuff hurt me. You were talking about reclaiming language,
Hmm.
and I will absolutely reclaim Christianity if I have to, religion in general. Um, just
So,
because my whole philosophy about what religion is and what purpose these ideas and these belief systems serve us has evolved into something beyond just calling it Christianity. Like I'm
mhm.
by no means devout, I'm not practicing, but I am knowledgeable. I grew up in the church. I went to Catholic military school. Um,
Well, that's a wild combination.
yeah,
What does that
all
even
that.
mean? That can't be
All
sponsored by the United States.
Oh no, I did JROTC.
What makes it that's what makes it a military school?
Yeah, no, I made it all the way up to master sergeant. But yeah, it was a military school that had a JROTC program, and so we had actual discharged members of the military in our school teaching classes, specifically leadership classes, not like military tactic classes, but just like leadership history, military, or it was a lot of civics, actually, now that I think about it. My junior year was a lot of civics.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
some people might be curious.
Huh?
John 1:4. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. I mean, is there a reason you picked like that passage? I assume there is.
And I mean, it just, how many times have you been asked, what happened? Were you abused as a child?
Hmm.
I just want to know. God, I had a woman last year who actually stitched my one of my videos and did that where, they used me as a target for their platform and asked, were you sexually molested? What was the impetus for this change? And I was just like, see that just there, right there. Everyone has this misconception that this is the result of something, that this is a problem that has to be fixed. It's the same thing that we do with ASD now, where we're so scared
Hmm.
about kids
Hmm.
developing autism rather than learning how to work with children who have autism and adults. We're just like, oh no, it's so bad. And this verse is a perfect metaphor for the fact that these things are just us. And we use our abilities, our curses, our burdens, our gifts to show how beautiful the world is. And I think being trans isn't something to be ashamed of, it's something to show the beauty of humanity and how much we are capable. I mean,
Yeah.
like people have seen my video. You've seen this blind man who couldn't see, just everything. It's just like it all melted away. All of the all of the shyness, all of the fear, all of the trepidation, the blindness, it all went away.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm here, I am going to say that this was a good thing and I'm going to help other people get there and recognize the beauty in transitioning and becoming who we are.
Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful and amazing. It's, I think that's part of at least my closeted experience that you're also citing here, that people don't, I think it's one of the less talked about parts of what it's like pre-transition of gender and this is, yeah, gender and sex and our relationships with ourself and our body and socialization and society. They interact with like literally everything. Like we are our bodies. And so when you're afraid of your relationship with your body, like that's going to reach everywhere. When you are afraid of how other people are judging the way that you perform and what it might imply about what's going on in your head or whatever, like it becomes not just a fear of transphobia. Like in my experience, most trans women pre-transition aren't like fully confident in themselves and just afraid to come out. It is an all-pervasive fear of this self. It is a fear of like
Yes.
yeah, like I
The
have to
amount of,
restrain all of these natural
oh
instincts in
my God.
myself because I don't know which ones are safe. I don't know which ones
Yes.
are infection, like
That is where let yourself happen came from. The amount of policing that I did, self policing as a boy, just being like, no, boys don't do that. Boys don't do that. Get your hands off your hips. Don't hold yourself like that. Make sure you're looking a certain way. Like, make sure you're grooming yourself a certain way. Like,
yeah,
people say be yourself. And I'm like, no, that's not helpful because like that is so weighted in so many different ways. Saying be yourself, well, like what does that what does that mean? Like, because
yeah,
I am being myself, but to say let yourself happen is to just say stop caring about being perceived certain ways. Just stop self-policing. Let go.
yeah,
If you were on that desert island, what would be happening? What would
yeah,
you be doing?
exactly. I'm about to tell the most LA fucking story,
Do
but
it.
I was recently in the audience for a taping of Let's Make a Deal, and I didn't get to play, but it's just the kind of thing you can do when you live in LA. There's
Yeah,
like,
my wife wants to go so bad.
oh, she should. It's very fun. But part of being in the audience of Let's Make a Deal is you just dancing all the time.
Yeah, you have
Like
to be on.
you have
I
to be
get it.
on and dancing.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there dancing and I was like, wait, I actually really like dancing. This is super
Yeah.
fun. And even like now, 7 years into my own transition, that like that's one of these things that I'm like, wait, I never let myself do that. And I had this realization then of like we're always kind of like finding these little like troughs to excavate in
Yeah.
ourselves. And I'm like, I remember now like being a teenager, being in college, and hating dancing specifically because the only ways that made sense in my brain to dance, like the ways to interact with music and let it move through my body, felt, you know, girly,
Effeminate. Yeah.
gay. Like
Oh
I find
God.
myself always wanting to do like I always had long hair and I
Yeah.
always wanted to like play with it when I'm dancing. And I'm like, that's such a girl thing. And so I never
Thank
let
you.
myself dance
Yeah.
at all.
Oh man. No, this is gonna sound bad. I needed ecstasy.
That
I
doesn't
was,
sound bad.
I was a club kid, and I mean, when I had good pills and I could just go and just dance and just not pay attention to the people who were watching me because they would watch me.
Yeah.
Like just I was in my own little world, just completely shut off. Like that was when Bree really shone
Hmm.
through. And that's how I look back on it now. It's just like all of those times where Bree was just trying so hard to get out. And I just didn't understand how
Yeah.
to do that.
It's hard. You
Mhm.
spent your whole life building a cage around that part of
Oh
yourself,
God, I
you know?
literally remember every single time somebody tried to break into that cage.
Yeah.
Like any weird conversation that ever kind of deviated towards, hey, have you ever heard about this idea of like guys who think they're girls trapped in the wrong body? And I would be like, all right, ears up, on alert, make sure you're saying the right thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I, like looking back, I'm like, how was that not your sign?
I I had the exact like I was the opposite of a club kid. Like
Okay.
I didn't let myself drink till I was 22. Um
22? Oh,
yeah, I was like I
I
need that
mean,
extra year for good measure. Not because I cared about the law, but because I was like I, I'm sorry, willingly relinquish absolute control over how I move through the world. No,
I
that's
remember. Yeah.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that like early straight edge Brie was probably like, I don't want to get drunk because I don't want to lose control of myself. And
Well, that's what
then,
I'll do. Maybe I'll kiss a
yeah,
boy. Maybe I'll
like,
sit with my
yeah.
legs crossed the wrong way. Like,
Yes, that's
ah,
exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah. Um, that was that a time signal? What's our ETA here?
No, she's still not here,
Oh,
so we're just kind of
fantastic.
waiting.
Okay, is
Um,
your wife in the room?
no,
Okay, you're
I
just
just
kind of
have
seeing her.
I have see-through doors.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of your wife,
Yeah.
how like y'all were married, you had kids
Mhm.
before you came out.
One kid
Um,
before we did, yeah.
one kid.
And
And
then mhm,
how like y'all are still together?
mhm.
What's that been like coming out to a spouse? Like, I'm sure scary.
Yeah, it was hard. It was very hard. Because she was the biggest thing that I was scared of losing. I wasn't scared about losing my job. I worked at a fucking bakery. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about that. I wasn't scared about what my parents were gonna say. I wasn't scared about my kid. She was gonna love me no matter what. I wasn't scared about dying anymore. Because it was a lockdown and I was convinced we were going to anyway. No, I was like, um, sorry, I think I'm going off. Yeah, no, I was
No, no,
worried about
that's
her.
wherever it takes you.
Mostly because she had always been acutely aware of my proclivity um prior. Because I was almost from day one with her very straightforward and told her, hey, there's this thing about me. I really like the idea of being a girl. I just want you to know that before we even get going. Like it was literally before we started dating, and I was like taking this approach with her, just because I knew that she was so special. And I knew that we were gonna go somewhere. I don't know, call it a hunch. But I just told her like there's this thing about me, and so she kind of already knew. And like she would even pry me sometimes.
Hmm.
Like I remember when the idea of a gender spectrum started getting kind of more attention in like 2016,
When did
2017.
you like when did you meet your wife? When did y'all get together?
We've been together for 12 years. So
Okay.
I literally met her the first day I moved to Colorado. I saw her across the
Wow.
parking lot wearing one of my favorite dresses because I used to work for a fashion company. And yeah, we have a very cute
So this is
story.
like 2013-ish.
hmm
Um, yeah, so
so
there's not like at that time, trans stuff, talk discussions about gender are barely out there. Like that's kind of like right around maybe like Transparent was about to come out, you know.
yeah, and I was just like, I'm not going to make the same mistakes that I did with her, that I did with my ex. And I was like, it's all about marketing. It's all about marketing. You got to make sure that she knows that you have a handle on it. And it's not something that's going to get out of control and that she needs to be scared of.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the thing when it did come out. I was like, she's been trying to tell me for years that I might be on the spectrum or that I might be,
The gender
kind of a
spectrum.
boy. Yeah, yes. Well, yeah.
Sure. For now, for this
Yeah,
conversation.
exactly. That's kind of like a two birds, one stone.
Yeah, yeah.
So I felt bad because I was like, she was right. Like, I can't believe that she was able to see these things about me that I wasn't. And I felt like I was letting her down. And
Hmm.
there's that obvious concern with a spouse who does what we do, because of the misconceptions that it is a sexual thing. That I was doing what I wanted to do because I wanted to be with someone else. And it took a while to demonstrate that it wasn't about being with anybody else. It was about being somebody else,
Yeah.
me. Um, and that took time that my wife thankfully had the stamina to deal with.
Hmm.
Um, because it wasn't overnight. I went through a long phase of trying to get here. Um, and
And
sorry,
just
squirrels.
oh, no worries.
I'm
Just
literally
to
distracted by the squirrels.
just
Um,
to clarify, because we did
yeah.
mention polyamory earlier. Are y'all
Mhm.
monogamous?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I am monogamous. I choose to give all of my time to my partner, my wife, you know.
Does she and slash or did she consider herself queer in any way?
Yes. Um, But she kind of did the same thing that I did, where when we met each other, both of us were just repressing hardcore. And when I came out, it launched her into this whole self identity journey where she was starting to say, like, okay, well, how do I feel? Who am I attracted to? And that got her on her own journey of developing her own sexuality. So thankfully, we were able to do that together and realize, what we wanted from each other.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of trans women, closeted or, just repressed trans women, end up dating repressed bisexual or lesbian cis women. Um,
It would be interesting to see where all of my exes are nowadays, but
I got a very funny message from I put when I was started transitioning, I posted like a timeline on some Reddit somewhere, and I got a DM from someone who was like, "Hey, this is gonna sound weird, but did you date Alice in college?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did. Who is this?" And it was the person who had dated Alice before me, who had also since come out as a trans woman,
oh my
and
God.
and it was so funny, and I remember like because every time I was dating as a straight man, I had a lot of I was very jealous when dating as a straight man, not in like a controlling, mean, jealous way, but in like a very insecure about my masculinity way. And I remember this now woman, this person was in my head as like oh no, they're so like I can never live up to that person in terms of, masculinity. And I'm sure they were thinking the same shit about other
Oh my
people.
God.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. Um,
Yeah. Every trans girl you know is jealous of another trans girl who's jealous of another trans girl who's jealous of another trans girl. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's awesome that I like how you put it, like had the stamina to get through
it was
that
hard.
hard part of that journey.
Yeah.
Um, it's, and I mean, it's amazing that you weren't like worried about your parents. And is that because like,
Because I'm selfish or a sociopath.
no, 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 no. Was it because you were confident that they would accept you ultimately? Like,
No.
oh, or because you were just like, you know what? Fuck it. If I lose that relationship, I lose that.
Um, No, I don't think I was even really thinking that forward. Because I have a younger brother who's gay, and he had the courage to come out before I did.
Hmm.
And my parents didn't handle it the best. Thankfully, we're all better now. But it was because I wasn't sure how they were going to respond to that, based on how they responded to him. Um, that I kind of was just like, they might have something to say about it, but again, I really need to do this for me.
Yeah.
It was really, my wife who I was most scared for.
No, I mean, that's super scary. Like,
And
I remember being in college, not like identifying as a trans woman in my own head because I didn't have the concepts really, but I remember I love my family. I'm like so lucky with my family and
good.
friends. And I remember having these like just thoughts of like, oh, I wish I didn't have parents who loved me so that I was free to do all this shit without worrying about losing that relationship.
Yeah.
Anyway, that looks like a
You.
time warning.
Yeah, that's my time warning.
Okay. Do
So,
you have a minute to give us final closing
yeah,
thoughts? If you
absolutely.
have a message for people of today and or archaeoanthropologists 2,000 years from now interested in the experience of trans women in America in 2025.
Oh God, what does my skeleton say?
Oh no.
Um,
Hey
because
there. Hi,
yeah,
Archie. Oh, like
no,
this is my skull.
yeah, I saw that.
Hi
That's
from the
very cool.
past. That's what mine will
When
say.
you're down and you don't know where to go, where do you go?
I'm gonna put like a little like voice message greeting card in my skeleton.
I love that.
Anyway, sorry.
No, my message is make stuff. Make stuff. Put
Hell
stuff
yeah.
out there. Just create. The
Hell
more
yeah.
and more you create, the more and more you're going to actually find the stuff that you like to do, the things that you're good at, and you'll just naturally get better at them. Just just make stuff. Leave stuff behind. It's awesome. Like that's one of the best things that we as people can do is our ability to create. So when you're creating, you're really engaging in one of the most human things there is to do. So just go out there and create, do stuff.
Amazing. And Bree, where can people find you if they want to see more of what you're making?
I'm on Instagram the most, just because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm very bored. So you can find me on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok and Threads, and I try to keep up
On Instagram,
everywhere.
where? What's your account name?
And my account name is Laser Breams. You might
Okay.
have to spell that out because it's, a fun
LaserBreems.
with a nice little period right
Oh,
between
in the
laser and
middle.
breams.
Okay.
Yeah,
Laser period Breems with two E's.
with two E's. Yeah,
Is that everywhere? Is that your
that's
name?
everywhere. Yeah.
Great. Well, if y'all, I'm sure I know you did. Since I know y'all love listening to Bree, go find her on whatever social platform you prefer that she's on. Bree,
Thank you.
thanks so much for being here and chatting with me. I'll have to have you back because I still have more
I know.
questions
Sarah,
about.
this is so much fun. You and I just need to start talking more.
Yeah, we should. I mean, it doesn't even have to be recorded next time, but some of it will because there's too
Yeah,
many nuggets here.
I know. You are just full of wisdom. I love it.
Oh, well, thank you. And likewise. Bree, thanks so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Happy
too.
Pride.
Yeah, you too. Happy Pride, everyone. Bye.